The galaxy was wide and full of stars, but it was not at peace. For centuries, countless civilizations had fought over borders, resources, and pride. Some wars ended quickly, others lasted for lifetimes. Yet none compared to the rising storm brought by the Zaith Empire. The Zaith were feared across space. They were tall, scaled beings with cold, sharp eyes and a hunger for control. Their fleets moved like machines, their soldiers marched without hesitation, and their technology was precise and deadly. When the Zaith chose a world, resistance was useless. Planet after planet fell into their grasp, and soon the galaxy whispered a single truth. No one could stop the Zaith. On the edge of a quiet star system, another world waited for conquest. The planet's surface was green with forests and silver with rivers, but the skies told another story. Enemy warships floated above, casting long shadows down to the lands below. Cities that once shone with light were dimmed, their people waiting in fear for the next command. The battlefield, though silent for the moment, held the weight of dread. Inside the command ship, General Kuroth of the Zaith stood at the center of a dark chamber. Around him, glowing screens showed maps of stars, planets, and routes through the void. His voice was calm but sharp. "This colony will fall as the others have fallen," he said. "There is no defense strong enough to resist us. Prepare the fleet for the final strike." The officers around him bowed their heads and followed his orders. To them, this was routine. Another victory. Another mark on their endless chain of conquest. But Kuroth noticed something different this time. Reports had been coming in quiet but unsettling. Scouts at the far edge of the system had sent signals of strange activity, faint energy readings, unidentified shadows moving in the void, and then silence. Scouts who went to investigate did not return. At first, the reports were ignored. Perhaps the ships had broken down. Perhaps they had been caught in some hidden storm. Space was full of mysteries after all. Yet Kuroth had been a commander too long to dismiss such things. He studied the reports again and again, his scaled hands tightening against the edge of the screen. One word had been whispered through the ranks, carried on low voices that soldiers thought their leaders did not hear, a word that brought unease even to hardened warriors: humans. Few of the Zaith had ever seen them. To most of the galaxy, humans were a minor species. They had no great empire, no vast fleets, no legendary weapons. They were explorers, wanderers, small in number compared to the great powers. But there were rumors, always rumors. Kuroth remembered hearing them in his early campaigns, stories told by defeated captains, tales from merchants, whispers carried by frightened refugees. Humans fought differently, they said. They did not surrender even when defeat was certain. They turned scraps into weapons, turned disasters into victories, and turned fear into fire. But stories were just stories. At least that was what Kuroth had believed. Now, as silence spread across the outer systems and as scouts failed to report back, the rumors no longer felt so distant. The alien officers noticed his unease, though none dared to speak of it. One finally broke the silence. "General, the colony shows no sign of resistance. Our troops can move at your command. Shall we proceed?" Kuroth's eyes narrowed. He stared at the map, where small blinking lights showed the last positions of his missing scouts. Beyond them, the void stretched endlessly, black and silent. "No," he said at last. "Not yet." The officer looked surprised. "Not yet? The colony is unguarded. The people are powerless. Why delay?" Kuroth's voice dropped low. "Because silence can be more dangerous than noise. Something moves in that darkness. And I will know what it is before we strike." On the surface of the planet, the colonists waited. They were not Zaith nor human. They were a smaller race, caught in the middle of a war they had never wanted. Families hid in broken homes, children asked questions their parents could not answer, and the skies above seemed like a cage. Among them, old stories were told as comfort. Some whispered of humans, the travelers from a blue planet far away. Long ago, they had sent ships to aid other colonies under attack. Sometimes they arrived too late. Sometimes they arrived just in time. But always they fought like no others. The colonists did not know if the stories were true. They did not know if anyone was coming. But in the silence of their fear, hope flickered like a small flame. Meanwhile, high above the planet, the void stretched wide. To the Zaith, it was nothing but emptiness. Yet in that emptiness, faint shadows drifted. Small ships, unseen by most scanners, moved quietly between asteroids and debris. Their engines burned low, their signals masked. Inside one such ship, a human captain sat with eyes fixed on his screen. His vessel was smaller than the Zaith warships, older in design, scarred from battles past. Yet his crew moved with sharp focus. Their voices were low, their hands steady. Zaith fleet is in orbit, the navigator said. Massive numbers. But they're waiting for something. They haven't attacked the colony yet. The captain nodded slowly. They're cautious. Good, that buys us time. Another officer leaned forward. Do you think they know? Not yet, the captain replied. His voice was calm, almost too calm for the weight of the moment. But they will. And when they realize we're coming, it'll already be too late. Back aboard the Zaith command ship, unease grew heavier. Hours passed, but the silence in the void remained. No enemy showed themselves, no signal revealed the truth. Yet Kurath felt the tension pressing against him like a storm before it breaks. He stood alone in the viewing chamber, staring at the endless black beyond the glass. Stars twinkled, distant and cold. Somewhere out there something was moving, something his empire did not yet understand. And in the stillness of that moment, the general realized he was not standing on the edge of victory. He was standing on the edge of something else. Something was coming. The Zaith Empire had fought many enemies in its long history. They had crushed armies larger than their own, broken fleets armed with advanced weapons, and turned proud civilizations into silent ruins. To them, war was not a test, it was a routine. Every opponent had a pattern, and every pattern could be broken. But humans were different. Few in the Zaith ranks had ever met them in battle. The galaxy was too wide, and humans rarely stood in the center of great wars. They were not conquerors, nor were they guardians of vast empires. To many they seemed small, scattered, unimportant. Their homeworld, Earth, was just one blue planet among millions. The Zaith archives described them in cold, simple lines. Bipedal species. Average height. Soft flesh. Short lifespans. Primitive beginnings. The files carried no warning, no sign of danger. Compared to other great species, humans were not fast like the Valine, not strong like the Drax, not numerous like the Kresh, and yet whispers told a different story. Across the stars, soldiers and travelers spoke of battles where humans had fought. They told of ragged armies who refused to break, of explorers who returned from deadly frontiers alive, of engineers who built weapons out of wreckage and scraps. Each tale was dismissed as an exaggeration, a myth told by those desperate to explain their failures. General Kurath had never believed them. He had no reason to, until now. On the command ship, he studied the silent void again. Reports showed no resistance from the colony below, yet his instincts told him otherwise. Something was moving in the darkness, something unseen, and the word kept returning to him, carried in hushed voices from his crew. Humans, Kurath remembered his academy days, when young officers shared stories late at night. One tale was of a Zaith outpost attacked by raiders. The outpost was well guarded, its weapons strong. The raiders should have been no threat, yet among them were humans, and somehow the outpost had fallen. Another story told of a trade convoy surrounded by pirates. The pirates had the numbers, but when a single human ship appeared, the balance shifted. The pirates fled. Kurath had laughed then, dismissing the stories as fantasies. He no longer laughed now. He turned to his officers. Strengthen our outer patrols. Double the scanning range. If anything moves in the shadows, I want to know. The officers obeyed without question, though unease grew in their eyes. Far from the command ship, hidden among the asteroids, the human fleet waited. It was not a fleet in the traditional sense. Their numbers were small compared to the Zaith armada. Their ships were not perfect. Some bore scars from past battles, others were patched with rough repairs. But their crews were steady, their engines quiet, and their movements precise. On the bridge of one such vessel, Captain Elias stared at the holographic map. Lines of light showed the enemy's position above the colony. The Zaith formation was strong, tight, and disciplined. They're expecting something, the navigator said. Patrols are doubling. They're searching the void. Elias gave a small nod. Good, let them search. The more they fear shadows, the less they see what's in front of them. The crew smiled faintly at his calm voice. They had followed him through battles before, and they trusted him now. Another officer leaned closer. Sir, do you think they know it's us? Not yet, Elias answered. To them, we are just rumors. Forgotten stories. They think of us as small. They think of us as weak, and that's our strength. He tapped the map, pointing to the Zaith fleet. They will underestimate us until the last possible moment. And when they realize their mistake, it will be too late. On the colony below, the people also whispered. Life had grown quieter under the Zaith occupation. Streets were empty, markets closed, and voices lowered to whispers of fear. Yet among those whispers came another kind of story, tales of the humans. An old man sitting by the remains of a broken fountain spoke to a group of children who gathered near. His voice was soft but steady. Long ago, when another empire tried to take the stars, they thought humans were nothing. But the humans fought back. They came with ships not as large, not as bright, but full of courage. And they won battles no one believed possible. The children listened wide-eyed. "Will they come here?" one asked. The old man sighed. "Perhaps. Perhaps not. Humans do not always come when called. But if they come, the Zaith will learn why even the strongest fear them." Hope flickered in the children's eyes, though their parents pulled them away, afraid of speaking such things aloud. Meanwhile, aboard the Zaith flagship, General Kuroth's unease grew sharper. Reports continued. Patrols lost contact, ships vanished from scanners, faint echoes of energy slipped through the void. No clear enemy appeared, yet something was out there. Kuroth called his officers again. "Tell me," he demanded, "what do we know of humans?" The chamber grew silent. Officers glanced at each other, uncertain who would speak first. At last one stepped forward, a younger commander with cautious eyes. "Sir, the archives list them as average in every measure, weak compared to most, but there are stories." "Stories," Kuroth repeated, his voice cold. "Yes, General," the officer said. "Stories that they fight without fear, that they adapt faster than any species known, that they—" He hesitated, then finished softly. "That they never surrender." A tense silence followed. The officers shifted uneasily. Kuroth's expression hardened, though inside his mind the pieces began to connect. If the rumors were true, then humans did not fight like others. They did not follow patterns that could be easily broken. They fought with unpredictability, with fire, with something no machine or empire could measure. And if they were here, then this battle would not be routine. Back in the hidden fleet, Captain Elias received new signals. Scouts had confirmed the Zaith were searching harder now. The enemy was growing restless. "Good," Elias murmured. "Let them be restless. Fear is the first crack in their armor." The navigator asked quietly, "Do you think they understand who we are yet?" Elias looked out into the stars, his eyes calm and steady. "Not yet. Right now we are only shadows to them, ghosts, but soon they will know. And when the moment comes, they will remember humans not as forgotten explorers, but as the storm they never saw coming." His crew felt the weight of his words. Fear and courage mixed inside them, but above all, determination burned bright. In the silent battlefield, the pieces were moving. The Zaith tightened their grip, but unease spread through their ranks. The colonists whispered of hope, though fear still bound their voices. And the humans, small in number but strong in spirit, waited in the shadows with patience and resolve. The galaxy had forgotten them. The Zaith had dismissed them. But the silence would not last forever, for soon the forgotten species would step out of the shadows, and the enemy would realize too late what it meant when humans were coming. The void between stars was never truly empty. It carried dust, light, and echoes of ancient things. To the Zaith, it had always been their hunting ground. Their ships swept through the black with unmatched precision, and their enemies fell before them. But this time, the void felt different. Above the colony world, the Zaith fleet waited like a predator ready to strike. Dozens of warships floated in formation, their hulls gleaming under distant starlight. Each ship was armed with heavy cannons, shields strong enough to turn aside most weapons. To any observer, the fleet seemed unbreakable, yet their commander, General Kuroth, felt no peace. Reports continued to arrive, each one heavier than the last. Patrols sent into the outer reaches of the system had gone missing. Scouts reported faint signals, strange energy bursts, then went silent. Ships vanished without alarms, without battles, as if swallowed by the dark. It was not how enemies usually fought. Most races came loudly, proudly, with fleets announcing themselves in strength. But this was silence. This was patience, and Kuroth knew patience was dangerous. In the strategy chamber of his flagship, glowing maps spread across the room. Blue lights marked his own fleet, steady and disciplined. Red dots should have shown enemy positions, but the maps were empty. Only scattered marks of last known signals blinked weakly on the edges. An officer broke the silence. "General, there is no confirmation of enemy forces. The colonies below show no sign of resistance. We may be fighting shadows." Kuroth's eyes narrowed. Shadows can kill. The officer hesitated but said no more. The crew around them shifted uneasily, their scales catching the cold light. Kuroth thought of the whispers. Humans. If the stories were true, this was exactly how they fought. Silent, clever, waiting for the perfect moment. Not strong in numbers, but deadly in timing. He had laughed at such stories once, but he was not laughing now. Far from the Zaith flagship, in the quiet dark of an asteroid field, the human fleet moved. They were small ships compared to the enemy, patched with scars and painted in dull colors to blend with the void. But every crew member inside moved with purpose. They did not rush, they did not waste energy. They waited like hunters in tall grass watching their prey. Captain Elias stood at the front of his ship, the glow of screens reflecting in his calm eyes. His navigator gave a report in a low voice. Enemy patrol entered the field. We stayed silent. They passed within 3 clicks. They didn't see us. Elias gave a slow nod. Good. Let them keep looking in the wrong places. Another officer leaned forward. Sir, the Zaith are nervous. We can see them shifting formation. They're doubling their scans. That means they know something's here, Elias said. But they don't know what. Fear works before we fire a single shot. His crew exchanged faint smiles. It was not bravado, but a steady trust in their captain. On the surface of the colony, the people continued to wait. Each day under the shadow of the Zaith ships felt heavier. Families gathered in silence, speaking only when needed. Children whispered about rescue, while adults tried to keep them calm. One young boy stared at the sky for hours, watching the black shape of the enemy ships above. He asked his father, why don't they attack? His father hesitated before answering. Because something is holding them back. Something they do not understand. The boy looked at him with wide eyes. Is it the humans? The father gave no answer, but hope flickered in his expression. Back in the void, the silence began to break. One by one, small events shook the Zaith formation. A patrol ship lost contact. Another returned with heavy damage, its crew shaken and confused, unable to explain what had struck them. A third reported seeing nothing but dark shapes rushing past, faster than scanners could track. Kuroth listened to the reports, his jaw tightening. These are not accidents, he said. Something hunts us. The younger officers grew restless. General, perhaps we should strike the colony now. End this quickly before the enemy shows itself. Kuroth's gaze was cold. No, that is what they want. They want us to act blindly, but I will not give them that. Meanwhile, in the hidden human fleet, the plan was moving forward. Captain Elias gathered his crew in the command room. The holographic map glowed with enemy positions. The Zaith still held the center, but cracks were beginning to show. Patrols had grown clumsy. Lines of defense stretched thin. Elias pointed to the map. They are looking for us everywhere but the right place. That is how we strike. The navigator nodded. Hit fast, hit quiet, and disappear again. Exactly, Elias said. We don't win by matching their strength. We win by showing them they can't hold control. Every time we strike, they will grow more desperate. And when desperation comes, discipline dies. His words were calm, but a spark lit in the eyes of every crew member. The next night cycle, the shadows moved. A small human ship slid silently from the asteroid field. Its engines burned low, masked against scanners. It crept close to a Zaith patrol, moving like a shadow itself. Inside, the human crew waited in silence. Hands hovered over controls, eyes fixed on the enemy ship ahead. Range in 30 seconds, the pilot whispered. Hold, Elias ordered. The patrol moved closer, unaware. The void around them was quiet, only the soft hum of systems. Range in 10 seconds. Hold. 5 seconds. Now. The human ship struck like lightning. A burst of energy cut through the darkness, precise and sharp. The Zaith patrol ship jolted, its shields failing instantly. Sparks flew as systems collapsed. Before it could even signal distress, the human ship vanished back into the void. The Zaith vessel drifted powerless. Its crew panicked and lost. By the time reinforcements arrived, nothing remained but wreckage. On the flagship, alarms rang. Kuroth's officers rushed to their stations, voices tight with fear. General, patrol destroyed. No sign of attackers. Scanners show nothing, but the wreck is real. Kurath's eyes burned as he listened. His claws tapped against the console, slow and sharp. "This is them," he said softly. "This is humans." The room fell silent at his words. None dared to argue. Kurath turned his gaze back to the void, his mind heavy with thought. They are not ghosts. They are predators. And they are already inside our hunt. In the human fleet, Captain Elias heard the report of success. He allowed himself a small smile, but his voice remained steady. "One patrol gone," the navigator said. "They will be shaken." "They already are," Elias replied. "But this is only the beginning. We don't fight for glory. We fight for time, for fear, and for the people down there." His hand moved across the map, circling the colony world. "When the enemy realizes who we are," he said, "it will already be too late. The shadows are ours, and we will make them afraid of the dark." In the silent battlefield, the war had not yet fully begun, but the first cracks had formed. The Zeeth, once certain of their strength, now doubted the void itself. The colonists, once hopeless, now whispered with new hope. And the humans, patient and quiet, tightened their hold on the shadows. The void was no longer theirs alone. It now belonged to the forgotten species, waiting, watching, ready to strike again. The silence of space shattered in small, precise moments. Above the colony world, the Zeeth fleet floated in tense formation. Each ship bristled with weapons, shields glowing faintly as their scanners swept every corner of the void. The enemy had grown uneasy, a subtle tension spreading through the crews. Reports of missing patrols and destroyed vessels had left officers whispering behind closed doors. The words "humans" spoken only in low, cautious tones. General Kurath paced the bridge of his flagship. His claws clicked against the floor as his mind raced. He had seen much in his long career, but never had he felt such unease. The humans were coming, and their timing was perfect. Silent, unseen, unpredictable. "They are ghosts," one officer muttered, unable to contain his fear. "They are predators," Kurath corrected, his voice low but sharp. "And they have walked among the stars long enough to know how to strike when we are blind." The Zeeth ships shifted nervously. Even their formation, once flawless, showed gaps. Systems were on alert, weapons ready, but the enemy did not appear. Yet everyone knew they were there, hidden, waiting. Far from the fleet, the humans moved with quiet determination. Captain Elias stood at the helm of his flagship, eyes fixed on the holographic display. Lines of light showed Zeeth positions above the colony, but no panic or fear betrayed his crew. They moved with patience and purpose, knowing every step had to be calculated. Approaching strike range, the navigator said softly. "Steady," Elias replied. "Remember, this is not a battle of brute strength. It's precision, timing, and surprise. Hit fast, vanish, then strike again. The Zeeth are not ready for this," the fleet responded as one. Ships adjusted silently, slipping closer to the enemy lines under the cover of shadows. They were not just attacking. They were teaching the Zeeth a lesson they would never forget. Back on the colony, the people looked to the skies, sensing something in the stillness. Families had lived under fear for weeks, watching Zeeth ships patrol endlessly above. Every day felt heavier, every night darker, yet whispers of humans returning grew stronger. The old tales of bravery, of species long underestimated, had returned to memory. An elder spoke to a group of children, pointing at the distant stars. "They are coming. The humans. When they arrive, they will not ask for permission. They will act, and their courage will change the world." The children looked on with wide eyes. Hope, fragile and glowing, returned to their hearts. Above them, the first human ships breached the Zeeth perimeter. They appeared suddenly, small and fast, darting between larger enemy vessels. Their engines burned low, masking their presence from most sensors. With a precision that shocked the enemy, they struck at weak points in the formation. Shields failed under targeted energy bursts, and critical systems went offline before Zeeth crews could react. On the bridge of the flagship, alarms rang sharply. Kurath's officers scrambled, eyes wide as they tried to locate the intruders. The human fleet was everywhere and nowhere, like a shadow in the void. "They are here," Kurath growled. "Do not let them escape our sight." The crew rushed to respond, but the humans were already gone, retreating into the black emptiness of space before the Zeeth could mount a full counterattack. In the chaos of the attack, Humans boarded enemy vessels. Marines moved quickly and efficiently, disabling weapons, cutting through control systems, and guiding critical ships out of danger. Every human soldier seemed to act with the same discipline, courage, and determination. They moved as one, coordinated and fearless, striking not to destroy recklessly but to disable strategically. The Zaith soldiers were stunned. They had faced strong opponents before, but never had they faced enemies who moved so boldly and yet so calmly. Every strike was calculated. Every maneuver was precise. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Captain Elias watched the battle unfold on the display. "They expected chaos," he said, voice steady. "But we gave them order. Fear will spread faster than their weapons can fire." The navigator nodded. "They can't predict us. Their fleet is organized, but they can't follow shadows they can't see." "Exactly," Elias replied. "We are not just fighting. We are changing the battlefield itself. When they realize who we are, it will already be too late." On the flagship, General Kuroth's patience broke. He had seen anomalies before, but never so many in such a short span. His fleet was trained, his officers capable, his ships powerful. Yet humans moved like water in the void, slipping through defenses that should have been impenetrable. "This is unacceptable," he roared. "Concentrate fire! Focus scanners! Find them!" Officers obeyed, but fear had already taken root. The Zeeth had faced dangerous species before, but they had never faced one that combined patience, strategy, and courage in such a way. And in their fear, mistakes appeared. Weapons fired too late, patrols moved incorrectly, formations faltered. The humans were teaching them without ever revealing the full extent of their force. The colonists below watched the skies as the battle continued. Bright flashes of energy lit the darkness above. Ships moved in ways no one could fully follow. Explosions rocked the atmosphere, but only in small bursts. It was not total destruction, it was precision, careful and sharp. Children gasped at the sudden burst of light. Adults held their breath. Slowly, a sense of hope replaced the fear that had ruled their lives. If humans could strike so boldly, perhaps the colony would survive. Perhaps the Zaith could be challenged. An old man whispered to himself, "They have come. The humans have come." In the human fleet, a quiet celebration occurred. Ships regrouped after each strike, crews checking systems and sharing reports. They had done what the Zaith had not expected. They had turned fear into advantage. Every attack forced the enemy into mistakes. Every strike increased panic in the ranks. Captain Elias addressed his crew. "Good work, but this is only the beginning. Remember, every action we take must be calculated. Every strike precise. The enemy is strong, but they are not unbeatable. Patience, courage, and coordination are our greatest weapons." His words were calm, but they carried authority and confidence. The crew listened, their hearts steady even in the chaos of battle. The Zaith were learning the hard way. General Kuroth realized that victory would not come from numbers or power alone. These humans were clever, adaptable, and unafraid. Each strike had a lesson hidden inside it, each maneuver a trap. The enemy had underestimated a species they had considered weak, and the mistake was now costing them dearly. He clenched his claws against the console. "They are extraordinary," he muttered, voice tight with a mixture of awe and frustration. His officers dared not reply. They all knew he spoke the truth. By the end of the cycle, the first wave of human attacks was complete. Ships vanished into the void, leaving behind damaged Zaith vessels and shaken crews. Patrols faltered. Weapons were misaligned. Scanners were filled with false readings and fleeting signals. The humans had struck and disappeared, leaving confusion and fear in their wake. On the colony below, people dared to believe again. Families emerged from hiding, looking up at the stars with hope. Children smiled faintly, feeling courage they had not felt in weeks. The elders whispered of stories long forgotten, tales of humans arriving in desperate moments to change the course of battle. Somewhere in the shadows above, Captain Elias watched quietly. His fleet had done exactly what they had planned. Fear had entered the enemy ranks. Panic would follow, and the Zaith would finally understand that this was no ordinary fight. The arrival had begun. The humans were no longer whispers in the void. They were here. They were precise, disciplined, and fearless. And for the first time, the enemy knew that the small, underestimated species they had ignored was now the most dangerous presence in the system. General Kuroth stared into the void, realization settling in his mind. "They are here," he said softly, "and we may have underestimated them." The shadows in the void had become alive, moving with purpose, striking with precision, and teaching the galaxy that humans were a force no one should forget. The galaxy had never been quieter, yet the silence carried the weight of fear. Above the colony world, the Zaith fleet staggered under the precision of human attacks. Ships that once seemed invincible now floated crippled in the void. Patrols that had dominated the skies were gone, destroyed or disabled. Systems that had never failed in battle now faltered under assaults that came without warning. General Kuroth, aboard his flagship, paced the bridge with claws tapping against the metal floor. The screens glowed with reports of losses, each one more impossible than the last. His eyes burned with disbelief, his mind unwilling to accept the truth, but deep inside he knew it. The humans had arrived. "They are too coordinated," an officer said, voice tight with panic. "Our formations, our plans. Nothing works. They anticipate us at every turn." Kuroth's gaze did not leave the void. He had fought brilliant commanders before, faced species that rivaled him in strategy, yet none had moved with such silent precision. "They are extraordinary," he murmured, almost to himself. "This is not mere battle. It is a lesson we were never meant to learn." The officer swallowed hard. "General, what do we do?" Kuroth's claws clenched. "We survive," he said. "And we understand. Only then can we hope to fight them." Meanwhile, the humans regrouped. Captain Elias observed the battlefield from his command deck. His fleet had struck decisively, moving between enemy ships with speed and precision. Yet he knew the battle was not yet won. The Zaith were shaken but still dangerous, and the colony below depended on them for hope and survival. "Status?" Elias asked, voice calm but firm. Navigator Lyra reported, "Enemy fleet is disoriented. Shields are failing on at least 3 cruisers. Patrols are scattered. They are trying to reorganize, but fear is slowing them down." Elias nodded. "Good. They will learn quickly what patience and strategy can do. But we must remain disciplined. One mistake now, and the advantage is lost." He glanced at his crew. Their faces were focused, calm, and unwavering. These were humans trained to fight not with brute force but with intelligence, courage, and the will to protect those who could not defend themselves. On the colony, life stirred in ways it had not for weeks. Families cautiously emerged from shelters, peering into the skies. Children pointed at distant flashes of light, excited yet afraid. Adults held their breath, sensing the turning tide. The old man who had spoken of humans whispered again, this time louder, so the children could hear. "They have come. The humans have come, and they will not stop until what is right is defended." Hope, fragile but real, spread among the people. The air felt lighter, the fear that had ruled their hearts slowly easing. Even under the shadow of the Zaith fleet, courage began to grow. In the void, humans moved again. They struck the Zaith flagship first, not to destroy, but to disable critical systems. Weapons faltered, shields wavered, and communication lines went dark. Enemy officers scrambled to respond, but every maneuver was anticipated. Every attempt to counterattack failed. Inside the flagship, Kuroth felt the first true sting of fear. His empire had faced rebellion, treachery, and battle-hardened species. But humans were unlike anything he had encountered. They were fearless, unpredictable, and unyielding. The realization hit him with a weight heavier than any weapon could deliver. "They are here," he said softly, almost in awe, "and we are unprepared." Captain Elias watched the enemy from his console. "They are panicking," he said to his crew. "We have broken their discipline, and that is our greatest advantage. Remember, fear spreads faster than energy beams, and once fear takes hold, the battle is ours even before the final strike." Lyra nodded. "Shall we proceed with the boarding teams?" "Not yet," Elias said. "First we let them see what they face. Then we remind them that humans do not fight as others do. Timing is everything." The fleet moved like a shadow in the void, weaving through Zaith ships, striking in small, precise bursts and disappearing before the enemy could react. Each attack was a message. The humans were not weak, not to be underestimated, and never to be ignored. In the Zaith flagship, panic spread. Communication lines flared with reports of ships being disabled. Patrols called for reinforcements that never arrived. Systems malfunctioned in ways that defied explanation. The officers whispered, their faces pale and scales trembling. Kuroth stared at the void, realization deepening. They are not just attacking, he said. They are teaching us what it means to face humans. His mind raced through every story he had once dismissed, every rumor he had ignored. Tales of humans fighting hopeless battles, of explorers overcoming impossible odds, of soldiers who never gave up. Each story now made sense. They were not exaggerations, they were warnings, and the enemy had ignored them. On the colony, the first human Marines appeared. They moved swiftly and confidently, disabling enemy ground forces, securing key locations and protecting civilians. Each step was calculated, each action precise. They did not destroy recklessly, nor did they hesitate. The people watched in awe, recognizing the courage, skill, and discipline they had only heard of in tales. A mother whispered to her child, "See, they have come to protect us. They are humans, and they are different." The child's eyes widened. "They are real." The mother nodded. "And they are here for us. We are safe now." In the void, the human fleet completed its first coordinated strike. Ships returned to hidden positions, moving silently through asteroid fields and dark corners of space. Their attacks had shattered the Zaith formation, forced confusion, and spread fear. Every action was calculated to protect the colony, while weakening the enemy's resolve. Captain Elias addressed his fleet. "Well done. You have shown them what humans can do. But remember, we are not here for glory. We are here to protect, to teach, and to survive. They will learn the cost of underestimating us." The crew nodded, their hearts steady. They had become the storm the galaxy would not forget. Back on the flagship, Kuroth's realization was complete. He had faced countless enemies, but none like this. The humans had arrived silently, struck precisely, and vanished before they could respond. Fear had entered his fleet, discipline had faltered, and the colony below was no longer helpless. "They are not just another species," he said to no one in particular. "They are the storm, the force we ignored at our peril." Officers whispered among themselves, the weight of truth heavy on their minds. The Zaith had underestimated humans, and that mistake could not be undone. Captain Elias watched the remaining enemy vessels, noting their hesitation and fear. "They will recover," he said quietly. "Some will fight harder, some will retreat. But they will never forget this day. They will never forget humans," Lyra spoke softly. "Do you think they will understand us fully?" Elias smiled faintly. "Not yet. But the moment will come. And when it does, the galaxy will change. Fear will not guide humans, courage will. And that is something no enemy can overcome." In the quiet aftermath, the Zaith fleet drifted in the void, battered, disoriented, and broken in spirit. The colony below began to rebuild cautiously, hope returning in small steps. Children laughed quietly, elders smiled, and families embraced. The humans had arrived, and the impossible had become real. Above them, Captain Elias looked out at the stars. He knew this was only the beginning, yet already the galaxy had felt the impact of humanity's arrival. The enemy had learned the hard way what it meant to underestimate the species they had once ignored. And in that moment, a simple truth spread through the cosmos. When humans come, they change everything.